Hello and welcome to Indus News, live from Islamabad. I'm Meher and these are the headlines. Pakistan's Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi says warring sides should work to reduce violence leading to a ceasefire in Afghanistan. Speaking to the media after meeting a Taliban delegation in Islamabad, Qureshi said the Taliban are fully inclined towards peace. He went on to say that the next round of peace talks will be held on the 5th of January, for which the venue is yet to be decided. In India, protesting farmers have blocked the border between Delhi and Noida to press for their demands. Tens of thousands of farmers have been protesting for the last 21 days against the controversial farm laws they say favor big corporations. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan says U.S. sanctions over the Russian arms purchase are an attack against its sovereignty. In a televised address, he said the sanctions will fail to deter the efforts of the Turkish defense industry. Pakistan has recorded its highest daily death toll in months, with 105 fatalities and over 2,700 infections overnight. The country's death toll has topped 9,000, while infections tally has surged over 445,000. In the U.S., over 303,000 people have died from the disease and more than 16.7 million have contracted the virus so far. India's death tally has topped 143,000, with the country's caseload approaching 10 million. Globally, the virus has claimed over 1.6 million lives and infected over 73 million. And in football, Real Madrid beat Athletic Bilbao 3-1 to move level on points at the top of La Liga. Karim Benzema scored twice to win the game for Real. Real Sociedad, Atletico Madrid, and Real Madrid are all tied at the top of the Spanish league with 26 points. Well, those were the headlines. More news and details after a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. And now for the news in more detail. Pakistan's Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi says warring sides should work to reduce violence leading to a ceasefire in Afghanistan. Speaking to the media after meeting a Taliban delegation in Islamabad, Qureshi said the Taliban are fully inclined towards peace. He asserted that a political settlement is the only way forward. The foreign minister announced that the next round of peace talks will be held on the 5th of January, for which the venue is yet to be decided. The international community, he said, should play its role in the ongoing peace process for its success. He reiterated that the Taliban, just like the rest of the world, acknowledge Pakistan's efforts for peace in the war-torn country. Meanwhile, 14 Afghan security force members have been killed and 4 others wounded in Taliban attacks in northern Baghlan province. Officials say the Taliban attacked 2 security checkposts in Pul-e-Khumri city. The Taliban spokesperson confirmed the raid, saying 3 commanders were among those killed. Zabihullah Mujahid said the checkpost fired mortar shells on civilians. He said 2 tanks were also destroyed, while weapons and ammunition were seized. And in India, protesting farmers have blocked the border between Delhi and Noida to press for their demands. The deadlock continues, with New Delhi refusing to show any flexibility regarding its agricultural reforms. Farmers declared December 20th a day of homage to mourn people who died of different causes during the agitation. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Narendra Modi accused the opposition of misleading and instigating the farmers. The Supreme Court will be hearing a plea directing the center to ensure farmers' rights and reverse the new laws. Thousands of farmers have been protesting for the last 21 days to repeal the agricultural laws they say favor big corporations. Moving on, Iran and the P4+1 nations are set to meet virtually today in a joint commission on the 2015 nuclear deal. Iranian state media said the meeting is significant because it is the first one in the post-Trump era. Secretary General of European External Action Service, Helga Schmid, will chair the meeting. Iran's Deputy Foreign Minister for Political Affairs, Abbas Araghchi, will be leading the Iranian side. Ahead of the meeting, the EU said it will focus on efforts to maintain the deal and its complete implementation. It said the Commission will also prepare for another ministerial-level meeting. And Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan says U.S. sanctions over Russian S-400 systems are an open attack against its sovereignty. In a televised address, he said the sanctions will fail to deter the efforts of Ankara's defense industry. Erdogan also vowed to work twice as hard to make the defense industry fully independent. The Turkish president said the sanctions showed a hostile stance by Washington against its fellow NATO ally. On Monday, the U.S. imposed sanctions on Turkey's presidency of defense industries and its chief, Ismail Demir. Ankara's foreign ministry condemned the sanctions as a grave mistake and urged Washington to revise its decision. And the International Rescue Committee warns that Yemen is at most risk of a humanitarian disaster in 2021. In a statement, IRC said conflict, widespread hunger, and collapsing aid mechanisms can worsen the situation. IRC officials say the world has turned its back on Yemen as it faces an unprecedented threat. The aid agency said Yemen has never before faced so many simultaneous challenges. A UN report says that 80% of Yemen's 30 million population needs some form of aid or protection. The humanitarian crisis watch list for 2021 includes Afghanistan, Syria, Ethiopia, Nigeria, Venezuela, and Mozambique. Now, a technical meeting on critical reforms of the Libyan economy has concluded in Geneva. In a statement, the UN mission in Libya says participants agreed to take steps for functional unification of Libyan institutions. It said they also agreed to unify the exchange rate to ensure greater stability of the Libyan currency and combat corruption. They also welcome plans to address the banking crisis and ensure nationwide access to liquidity. The participants agreed to meet again in January to review progress on these issues and consider further steps. Meanwhile, the Security Council has approved the appointment of Bulgarian Nikolay Mladinov as the special envoy for Libya. Norwegian Tor Wennesland has been picked as the Middle East envoy. In northwestern Nigeria, 2 students have been killed in an operation to rescue schoolboys kidnapped by Boko Haram militants. Katsina State Governor Aminu Masari says at least 17 pupils have been rescued. He said the majority of the kidnapped students are in the Zamfara forest in the neighboring province. The governor added the state has deployed all resources and efforts are underway to save them. Meanwhile, the U.S. has condemned the incident. A spokesperson for the State Department said Washington is investigating Boko Haram's claim of responsibility. More than 300 students were kidnapped by Boko Haram terrorists from a boarding school in Kankara town. And in the French city of Nantes, hundreds of people have clashed with police during a demonstration against the contentious security law. Police used tear gas and water cannons to disperse the demonstrators. The country has been hit by a wave of street protests after the government introduced a security bill in parliament. It set out to its surveillance tools and restrict rights on circulating images of police officers in the media and online. Protesters have slammed the law as repressive and aimed at curbing freedom of speech and expression.
I'm here to fight for everyone's freedoms because I fear we're in a full authoritarian drift now with the government's measures and this repressive law, which has no other use than harming freedom and certainly does not guarantee anybody's freedom.
Some reluctant world leaders have congratulated U.S. President-elect Joe Biden on his win. The long-delayed acknowledgments come after the Electoral College formalized Biden's victory. In a letter to Biden, Mexican President López Obrador praised his triumph, recognizing his position in favor of migrants. Acknowledging the loss of Trump, Brazilian president also extended his best wishes to Biden. Key Trump ally and Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell also joined several Republicans in acknowledging Biden as president-elect. Meanwhile, January Senate runoffs will decide who controls the 100-member House in U.S. Congress. Now, the U.S. has recorded more than 303,000 deaths from the coronavirus and 16.7 million cases. In India, the virus has claimed 144,000 lives and infected almost 10 million people. Globally, there are more than 1.6 million deaths and 73 million cases. More on coronavirus in the following report.
Even though coronavirus vaccines are being rolled out, 1 in 4 people globally may not get them until 2022. Researchers say rich countries with less than 15% of the global population have reserved 51% of supplies. In the U.S., vaccines have been delivered in all 50 states, and Moderna's candidate is set for regulatory authorization this week. Canada will receive tens of thousands of doses of Moderna's vaccine by the end of the year. Meanwhile, Argentina says the U.S. pharmaceutical giant Pfizer brought up unacceptable conditions during vaccine negotiations.
We were asked for a law that would provide immunity. The law was in Congress, and it then later appeared in the negotiations with Pfizer as well. It was never from residents, but Pfizer said it was with us. It said that the previous law wasn't sufficient enough, so there would have to be a new law, and also that the contract was not to be signed by me, but the president himself. Truthfully, they are somewhat unacceptable conditions.
Over in Europe, shopkeepers in the Netherlands are struggling to cope with the new lockdown during the busiest time of the year. In France, a second national lockdown in Paris has now been transformed into a curfew after new cases were down. London has moved into the highest tier of restrictions to control rising infection rates. Meanwhile, scientists are trying to find out if the rapid spread of a new variant in southern England is linked to key mutations detected in the strain.
So people must have looked at this N501Y mutation and looked at where the mutation has occurred and tried to predict how much that would have changed the protein shape. And it sounds like they figured out that, in fact, it won't change it that much. So the vaccine-induced antibodies to the S protein should still bind to it.
South Korea has hit another record of daily infections with over 1,070 cases. And Japan's Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga has drawn criticism for joining end-of-the-year social gatherings after imploring residents to avoid them. While Australia has reported its first local coronavirus case in nearly 2 weeks after an airport worker tested positive.
Pakistan has recorded its highest daily death toll in months with 105 fatalities overnight. The health ministry says the country's death toll has climbed to 9,010. The ministry reported 2,731 new infections in the past 24 hours. It said currently there are more than 48,000 active COVID-19 cases in the country. Out of over 445,000 countrywide cases, over 388,000 people have recovered so far. The ministry said over 198,000 cases have been detected in the Sindh province, while Punjab has reported nearly 128,000 cases. More news after a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Pakistan is observing the 6th anniversary of the horrific attack on Army Public School in Peshawar. On this day in 2014, 132 children and 17 staff members lost their lives in a blatant act of terrorism. More in this report.
In Pakistan, wounds of the Peshawar school attack reopen each winter. It was the world's 4th deadliest school massacre. Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, a proscribed group, claimed responsibility for the assault. Recalling the horrific incident, the country's top leadership paid homage to the innocent victims. Addressing an event in Peshawar, Prime Minister Imran Khan said the APS incident has united the entire nation to defeat terrorism. He said the nation is still aggrieved at the incident. The Speaker of National Assembly, Asad Kasser, said no religion allows killing humanity. He said the sacrifices of martyrs did not go wasted. Terrorism has been rooted out of Pakistan. After the attack, that Pakistan's parliament unanimously passed the National Action Plan, spelling out specifics to counter terrorism in the country. A number of activities are being held across the country today to remember the sacrifices of the innocent children.
Today also marks the 49th anniversary of the fall of Dhaka. India-sponsored terrorists inside East Pakistan breached international borders and waged an unwarranted war to dismember Pakistan.
December 16th, 1971 marks the day when India's jingoism and expansionism led to the dismemberment of Pakistan's eastern wing and the creation of Bangladesh. India and its spying agency RAW had cross-border infiltration of its spies and troops in violation of international law and provided safe havens to terrorists against Pakistan. Several books have been written about India's clandestine intervention in Bangladesh since its inception. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, on his last visit to Bangladesh, confessed to all these war crimes, saying New Delhi was proud of its actions that led to the fall of East Pakistan. India's habit of conspiring and constantly meddling across the border knows no bounds, as is eminent by its current border standoff with China at Ladakh, with Pakistan at the illegally annexed Indian-occupied Kashmir, and even with Nepal over the border issues.
Spain's Queen Letizia has helped deliver 11 tons of aid to hurricane-ravaged Honduras. The European royal seeks to raise awareness of the Central American country's devastation after 2 deadly hurricanes. Queen Letizia met with children and families, including some who lost their homes in the hurricanes. She also called on President Juan Orlando Hernandez. Nearly half the Honduran population, comprising of 4.5 million people, has been impacted by the hurricanes and their aftermath. More than 85,000 homes were damaged by the twin storms, with 6,000 destroyed. A powerful storm, YASA, is barreling down on Fiji with hurricane-force winds. U.S. Oceanic and Atmospheric Organization said the tropical cyclone has reached Category 5 level. It said sustaining the winds of up to 260 kilometers per hour. Cyclone was at Category 1 only 24 hours ago. It said the storm will also bring over 250 millimeters of rainfall, which can trigger flooding and landslides. Officials have warned that the potential effect of the storm can be catastrophic for the region. Meanwhile, Fiji's president has urged the communities to take steps to keep their homes and communities safe. In Bolivia, scientists have announced the discovery of 20 new species in the Bolivian Andes, as well as sightings of plants and animals not seen for decades. More in this report.
Located near the Bolivian capital of La Paz, Zongo Valley is known as the heart of the region. High up steep, rugged mountains are an array of well-preserved habitats which are thriving with lush biodiversity. It was among the cloud forest that researchers discovered 20 species new to science, including a frog that may be the smallest in the Andes, a new venomous pit viper, 4 butterflies, and 4 orchid species.
So the findings of our RAP expedition to the Zongo Valley in Bolivia were really extraordinary. We were quite surprised at the number of species that we found that were new to science, as well as the rediscovered species. And these findings are of enormous importance to Bolivia and to the world.
They also found plants and animals not seen for decades, including the devil-eyed frog that was last seen 20 years ago. Also rediscovered was the Alizata verticillata, a small flowering tree, after 127 years.
As scientists trained in this and with experience doing these types of expeditions, especially when we visit places like this in the Andes, we expect to find a certain number of new species, perhaps not as many vertebrates like the snakes and frog that we found that were new, but even more exciting for many of us was the rediscovery of 4 species that were believed to be extinct.
The expedition was led by a non-profit environmental group and the government of the capital city of La Paz. It included 17 scientists who went to the Chavi Grande, a locality near La Paz.
In Seoul, a cat cafe allows visitors to cuddle up with around 130 feline friends. Some dressed up in Santa costumes are ready to wish people a meowy catmas. Details in this report.
Park Seo-young opened the Cat Garden Cafe in 2016 to rescue abandoned cats, a situation which has worsened during the pandemic. Officials say the number of abandoned pets increased by 3.7% in the first half of 2020 as compared to last year.
With many people staying at home, more people are adopting cats. But at the same time, more people abandon pets as the coronavirus situation worsens. Whenever I hear about such news, it really hurts me.
The cafe itself was hit by the coronavirus. It used to have about 100 visitors a day, but that has recently dropped by about a third. But visitors say it is still a source of visual gratification with some of the cats donning Santa outfits. They say the emotional respite from cuddling the feline fur balls is a much-needed escape from coronavirus anxiety.
Especially this year, it is hard to feel the festive atmosphere, but it was great to see cute cats wearing Santa suits and feel like Christmas is nearing.
Park says a special feast is on the cards for the feline Santas over the festive period, a chicken breast party.
And now moving on to business, China has called on Australia to take Beijing's concerns seriously over trade disputes. In a daily briefing, a foreign ministry spokesman said Australia must take concrete actions to correct its discriminatory actions against Chinese firms. This came after Australia said it will launch a formal appeal to the World Trade Organization for review of China's tariffs on Australian barley. Talking to reporters, the Australian Trade Minister acknowledged the appeal may take years to be resolved, but the Chinese Foreign Ministry warned that Australia should reconsider its decision.
What I want to stress is that Australian government should take China's concerns seriously and take concrete action to correct its discriminatory action against Chinese companies.
European stocks are trading higher following a positive trend on Wall Street and in Asia-Pacific markets overnight. European stock 600 has edged up more than 0.5%, with autos bouncing over 2%. London's FTSE 100 advanced more than 1%, while Italy's FTSE MIB has added close to 1%. Frankfurt's DAX has risen over 1.5%. The CAC 40 in Paris, too, has gained close to 1%. Earlier, all Asian bourses also traded higher. Now moving on to sports and football, Real Madrid beat Athletic Bilbao 3-1 to move level on points at the top of La Liga table. Karim Benzema scored twice to win the game for Real. Toni Kroos put Real ahead with a first-time low drive towards the end of the first half. Ander Kappa's equalizer in the 52nd minute was followed by Benzema heading the champions back into the lead in the 74th minute. He then killed the game off by scoring his second, securing Real's fourth win in a row in all competitions. Real Sociedad, Atletico Madrid and Real Madrid are all tied at the top of the Spanish league with 26 points. And in Bundesliga, Borussia Dortmund beat Werder Bremen 2-1 to secure their first win in 4 league games. The win moves Dortmund to 4th place in the German league with 22 points. Rafael Guerreiro's 12th minute volley put the visiting Dortmund in the lead. Werder's Kevin Moywald soon equalized with a powerful shot in 28th minute to fizzle out the euphoria. Werder's goalkeeper Jiří Pavlenka conceded a penalty in the 78th minute after crashing into Manuel Akanji. Pavlenka blocked Marco Reus's spot kick but was beaten by Dortmund skipper on the rebound. And in cricket, West Indies have agreed to a tour of Bangladesh in January and February to play 3 one-day internationals and 2 tests. The two countries made the announcement after recommendations from the Medical Board of Cricket West Indies. The West Indian medical team had inspected COVID-19 protocols in place at 2 venues, Dhaka and Chittagong. The statement said discussions to fine-tune the arrangements to ensure the health and safety of players will continue. West Indies are scheduled to arrive in Dhaka on the 10th of January, where they will go into quarantine. The ODI series is to be played from the 20th of January, followed by the Test series on the 3rd of February. And now it's time to take a look at the latest weather updates from around the world. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at indus.news.